this should be a pretty productive weekend. It's a 4-day weekend. It's a holiday here. It's basically tomb sweeping, which happens every year, but because of that we have 4 days off work, and we're going to do tomb sweeping, I believe, a little bit later today, maybe tomorrow. I have to check, but the rest of the time I'm just getting stuff done. So I had ordered a new radio on eBay. It's one of those cheap Chinese ones that's like, $50, and it has a 7-inch touchscreen. And it didn't show up when it was supposed to, so I contacted the guy, and he went ahead and refunded me, which is cool. But now here it is, like a month later, and suddenly this thing shows up. And it came from Sweden, of all places, which is weird. So I do finally have the stereo to put in my Suzuki. And the next thing is that the battery has been dead for a while, and last night went ahead and picked up a new battery, so that's going in. I also had to put the spare tire back on. I had removed it along with the shell so I'd have more rear clearance when I was backing into something or squeezing in tight spaces, but I have to put this back on, and I actually have to take those lifting blocks back out of the front to lower it back down, so that I can take it and get it inspected and get it passed for the next 6 months. After that, I actually invested in new tool stuff. So I had bought the steel, and now it's already cut to length, but this is all steel I'm going to use to build a replica of the Rogue monster racks. Now this one's not going to be an exact replica of any of their racks. It's going to be kind of a hybrid between two of their designs. Kind of their arms are their RM6 versus their RML, was it 460 or whatever it is, but basically it's a big heavy duty squat rack. And for this project I decided that instead of relying only on my drill press like I did last time, which ended up being nearly the death of me, it just took way too long and it was way too many problems. I was burning through drill bits like crazy because there were just so many holes to cut in thick, heavy steel, that I kept thinking the whole time, like before I built that squat rack, I thought to myself, man, I would really like to have an annular cutting setup, like a big heavy mag drill with annular cutters. That'd be great. But I didn't buy one because it's expensive. So then I used my drill press for that project, and I was building the Texas Strength rack. And the whole time, especially because it was just taking so long and I was burning through bits, I just kept thinking, man, I really should probably invest in a mag drill and some annular cutters. But I didn't do it. And afterwards I thought, yep, it's on my list. I need to keep my eye out for a mag drill and some annular cutters. And I just kept not doing it. But now, as I'm about to start getting to the time-consuming work of this, which is to cut thousands of holes, I decided, that's right, I finally invested in an annular cutter setup. Big mag drill, this big heavy sucker, and some annular cutters. And I did not want to waste my time, and I wanted to do it right the first time, so I did not buy used, didn't want to chance it, even though it probably would have been fine. And I did not get the smaller one that was being suggested. When I was looking at this, I bought this from the same place that I bought my welder from. So good people, good products. But they were actually trying to get me to buy the smaller one. They said, this one's really oversized, it's really heavy, you probably don't need it, especially for what you're doing. But who knows what kind of stuff I'm going to get into in the future, so I decided this was the way to go. This is 1500 watts, and it spins 390 RPM, so if you do the calculations, 1500 watts, 2 horsepower, by 390 RPM, that comes out to like 27 foot-pounds of torque. I was thinking about it, I was like, well, my drill press is a 0.5 horsepower. And even at the lowest RPM, I can't remember the exact one, maybe it's 440 or maybe it's 470 or something like that, but let's say it's 450. If I've got 0.5 horsepower geared down to 450 RPM, I think that comes out to like, I don't know, and a half, or like, yeah, like 5.5 foot-pounds of torque, something like that. I'm probably wrong. You can correct me, but it's less than 10 foot-pounds of torque. It's less than 8. I think it's like 5.5. So it's not even 6 foot-pounds of torque, and that's usually plenty. Only when I'm cutting through really heavy steel and I'm really laying into it does it start to bog down a bit. This has 27 foot-pounds of torque. So, oh man, I mean, like 5.5, 11, 22. Yeah, damn near 5 times as much torque. So, between the insanely improved torque and the better cutting setup using annular cutters rather than a hole saw, I think it's just gonna punch through this steel like butter, like it'll be no problem, and I'm really looking forward to trying it. Now, I'm no expert with mag drills. As a matter of fact, this is the first one I've ever owned. First one I've ever even used. But I think it's safe to say that me not knowing what I'm doing, just kind of guessing with this mag drill, is already incredibly fast and efficient. I just kind of threw together this thing to test it, so I got the mag drill suctioned to my bench, since it's a steel bench, and then I've got this C-clamp just clamping this down so it's lined up, and then I can use this guide pin to kind of slide the pipe along. I'll loosen the C-clamp, I'll slide the pipe a bit, tighten it back up, punch the hole. But I remember when I was using my drill press with regular old hole saw, it was taking on average a few minutes to cut each hole. You know, things get hot, they don't cut as well, and the setup takes longer and everything else. But also, that was me knowing exactly how much pressure I could put on that thing safely. Now, I don't know how hard I can push this. I haven't even tried yet. I'm just kind of putting just enough pressure to cut, but I want you to see what it does. And that's it. It's done. The hole is cut. There's no burrs, there's no chips. It's nice, smooth, perfectly cut, perfectly smooth, like no bullshit hole. In a matter of seconds. That's incredible. Basically what I'm doing is I've got my square here and I've got a piece of chalk, and what I'm doing is I'm taking one of these cross members here, because these are the short ones for the storage area and those are the longer ones for the squat area. But I take those cross members, and basically what I do is, I'll show you here. So I take my square, and this is 3 inches wide, so I take my square with one hand, and I take my other hand and I put the piece of chalk right at the 1.5 inch point, and I start here and I just drag it along, and that gives me one straight line right in the center. Then I put my square back and I grab my tape measure along that center line, and obviously this is just, it's not even hooked onto the ends, just demonstration, but basically I go along the points and I just tap where I need to have my guide holes drilled. Once I have those paint spots on there, I put it up here, which you can see I've got them on here. Now this vise is already set, so it's perfectly centered. So if there's some discrepancy in exactly where the dot is as far as left or right, doesn't really matter. I know that this will have it lined up perfect. But basically, I just take this and I turn it on, go down, and that gives me my guide. Then I loosen this up, I slide this through, I clamp it back down, tap another little guide, slide it through, etc. Once all of my guides are tapped in place, I then take this piece over here, I lay it on my table, and I have this little nipple right here that sits right in the guide, which tells me that this will be centered where it needs to be. So once I get this lined up with the guide, I clamp this down. I clamp this down to make sure that it doesn't move. This magnet's making sure this doesn't move, and I can just punch the hole right out. It takes all of 2 seconds. Loosen this C clamp, slide it through, make sure it's centered on this nipple, clamp it back down, punch another hole, etc. Now, I've already done one side of this steel. You can see holes are cut all along. Now I'm just about to do the other side. Now obviously I need to get this table cleared off, and I'm actually going to get pulled out to the center so I can walk all the way around it and I can have some more overhang. But right now, using a short piece, this is just kind of a proof of concept more than anything, and so far it's working out real well for me.